The warning lights flashed red across the command center of Galactic Council Station Epsilon 7. Ambassador Veltar's 6 eyes focused on the data streaming across his screens. Something was wrong. Very wrong. "Dr. Yulson, are you seeing this?" Veltar called to the pale blue figure floating near the communication array. His translator unit buzzed as it converted his native clicks and whistles into galactic standard. Yulson's ethereal form shimmered as she turned her attention to the readings. "The signal is coming from the Terra system, but that's impossible. Our records show that planet went dark over 50,000 years ago." Commander Kixmoth stomped over on his 4 thick legs. His armored shell gleamed under the station's lights. "Terra? You mean that dead rock where the primitive bipeds used to live? Why would anything be transmitting from there?" Veltar's tentacles danced over his control panel. "That's what we need to find out. The signal is strong, too strong for background radiation or natural phenomena." The 3 beings stared at the main display screen as waves of data rolled past. The transmission was unlike anything in their databases. Complex mathematical sequences mixed with star charts and what looked like technical blueprints. But the most disturbing part was how advanced. "It all seemed, this technology," Yulson whispered, her voice like wind through crystal. "It's beyond anything we've seen. Even our most advanced species couldn't create transmissions this sophisticated." Kixmoth snorted through his breathing vents. "You're telling me that a bunch of primitive humans who barely figured out fire made this? Impossible." Veltar wasn't so sure. He had studied the old records about Terra. The humans had been classified as Class 3 primitives when the Galactic Council first cataloged their world. They used simple tools, fought with metal weapons, and hadn't even achieved faster-than-light travel when their planet suddenly went silent. "Wait," Veltar said, his voice rising with excitement. "I'm getting coordinate data, multiple sets of coordinates." The main screen shifted to show a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. Dozens of red dots appeared, scattered across known space. Each dot pulsed with the same rhythm as the mysterious transmission. Yulson floated closer to the display. "These coordinates, they're all in empty space. Dead systems with no known worlds or stations." "Not all of them," Kixmoth rumbled. He pointed one clawed finger at several dots. "These 3 are in the neutral zone, and this one is right next to hegemony space." Veltar felt a chill run through his body. The hegemony were not known for their patience with mysteries. If they detected this signal, they would investigate with weapons drawn. "Dr. Yulson, can you decode more of this transmission?" Veltar asked. The ethereal being's form brightened as she focused her energy on the communication array. "I'm detecting what might be text. Give me a moment to run it through the translation matrix." The station's computers hummed with activity. Yulsen's specialized abilities allowed her to interface directly with electronic systems, making her the best communications expert in the galaxy. If anyone could decode an alien signal, it was her. "Got something," she announced. It's in an ancient form of galactic standard. Very old, but readable." The main screen flickered and new text appeared. 3 simple words that made all 3 beings freeze in place. "They sleep, but they remember." Kixmoth's shell plates rattled with nervous energy. "What does that mean? Who sleeps? Who remembers?" Veltar was already pulling up historical databases. "I'm checking the old survey reports from the Terra system. Maybe there's something we missed." The files were ancient by galactic standards. Most were simple resource surveys and biological catalogs. The humans had been noted as an aggressive but promising species. Their technology was crude, but showed rapid advancement. Then, suddenly, all communication stopped. "According to these reports, the humans just disappeared," Veltar said. "No distress signals, no signs of war or natural disaster. Their planet simply went quiet one day." Yulson was still working on the transmission. "There's more data here. Technical specifications. I don't know what these are. The designs are incredibly complex." She transferred the images to the main screen. Strange geometries and mathematical formulas filled the display. To the 3 council members, it looked like pure fiction. The technology shown was thousands of years beyond anything they knew. "This has to be fake," Kixmoth declared. "Some kind of joke or hoax. Primitive humans couldn't have built any of this." But Veltar wasn't convinced. He had spent his career studying lost civilizations. Something about this transmission felt real. Too real. "We need to report this to the High Council," he said finally. "They need to see this data." The transmission continued for 3 more hours. By the time it ended, the station's computers had recorded enough technical data to fill a small library. Star charts, mathematical proofs, technical blueprints, and dozens of coordinate sets. The High Council's response came quickly. Within 12 hours, a priority message arrived from the galactic capital. "Attention Station Epsilon 7. Form immediate investigation task force. Proceed to coordinates provided in Terra transmission. Priority Alpha clearance authorized. Report all findings directly to High Council. End message." Veltar read the orders twice. Priority Alpha clearance was reserved for galaxy-threatening emergencies. The High Council was taking this very seriously. "Looks like we're going on a field trip," Chixmoth said, checking his weapons systems. "How long to prepare the expedition fleet?" 2 days to gather the ships and crews," Yulsen replied. "But Veltar, are you sure about this? These coordinates could lead to anything, or nothing." Veltar studied the star chart one more time. The coordinates were scattered across the galaxy like seeds, each one calling out to them with the same mysterious message. They sleep, but they remember. "I don't think we have a choice," he said. "If humans really did create this technology, we need to know how. And if they didn't, we need to know who did." The investigation fleet assembled quickly. 5 ships from different council species, each bringing their own expertise. The Zenthari provided archaeological equipment. The Hegemony sent military escort vessels. The Ethereals brought their communication specialists. The Kronak contributed heavy mining equipment for excavation work. As the fleet prepared to jump to the first coordinate set, Veltar couldn't shake a feeling of unease. The Terra transmission had been too clean, too perfect, almost like it was, waiting for them to find it. "Jump coordinates locked in," the fleet commander announced over the communication system. "All ships report ready." Veltar took one last look at the Terra system on his screens. That dead, silent world where humans had once lived, where they had supposedly died out 50,000 years ago. But what if they hadn't died? What if they had just gone quiet? "Execute jump," the commander ordered. The fleet vanished into hyperspace, heading toward the first coordinates. Behind them, Station Epsilon 7 continued to monitor the now silent Terra system. The transmission had stopped, but something told Veltar this was just the beginning. Somewhere in the dark, between stars, ancient systems were stirring. Things that had waited patiently for 50,000 years were finally receiving visitors. And, in the depths of space, sleeping giants began to wake. Captain Nix Valdor stared at the massive object floating in space before his fleet. His 4 arms worked frantically at the control console, while his crew of Kronak warriors muttered prayers to their war gods. What they had found defied every law of physics and engineering they knew. "Scientist Zephluna, tell me you're getting readings on this thing," Nix Valdor growled into his communication device. The aquatic being's voice bubbled through the speakers from her water-filled research vessel. "Captain, this structure is over 200 kilometers long. The materials are unlike anything in our databases. Some kind of metal that shouldn't exist." Pilot Keth Iron's mechanical voice crackled over the fleet channel. "Captain, my sensors are detecting similar objects throughout this system. At least 12 more, all hidden in the asteroid field." Nix Valdor felt his blood run cold. The first coordinate from the Terra transmission had led them to what looked like an empty system, just a dead star and a ring of asteroids. But now they could see the truth. The asteroids weren't natural. They were camouflaged structures, each one the size of a moon. "This is impossible," he muttered. "Who could have built something this large?" Zeph Luna's research team had been scanning the nearest structure for 3 hours. "Captain, I'm reading power signatures from inside. Very faint, but definitely artificial. These things are still active after... Wait, let me confirm this dating." The silence stretched for long minutes while Zeph Luna ran her tests. When she spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper. 50,000 years old. Give or take a few centuries." The bridge of Nix Valdor's ship fell silent. 50,000 years was before recorded galactic history, before any of their species had achieved spaceflight, before the Galactic Council even existed. That predates everything, Keth Iron's mechanical voice stated. The oldest known civilization is the Nexus Empire, and they only go back 20,000 years. Nix of Aldor made a decision. We're going aboard. Zeph Luna, prepare your scanning equipment. Keth Iron, ready a shuttle. We're going to find out what's inside these things. The docking process took 6 hours. The ancient structure had no obvious entrances, but eventually Keth Iron's mechanical expertise found hidden panels that responded to touch. The airlock that opened was clearly designed for bipedal creatures about 2 meters tall. Human proportions, Zeph Luna observed as they entered the structure. But that's impossible. Humans were primitives when this was built. The corridors inside were vast and empty. Emergency lighting activated as they walked, creating an eerie blue glow that seemed to follow their movements. The walls were covered in symbols that none of them recognized, but somehow looked familiar. These markings, Nix Valdor said, running one clawed hand along the wall. They're similar to the mathematical sequences from the Terra transmission. They followed the corridor deeper into the structure. The scale was overwhelming, rooms large, enough to hold their entire fleet, machinery that hummed with quiet power despite its incredible age, and everywhere signs that this place had been built by intelligent creatures with technology far beyond their own. Captain, Keth Iron called from ahead. You need to see this. They found him standing before a massive viewing window. Beyond the transparent barrier lay a chamber filled with thousands of cylindrical containers. Each one was about human-sized and glowed with soft internal light. Stasis pods, Zeph Luna breathed. But the power requirements for this many units... Nix Valdor activated his communication device. Base ship, we're reading massive power signatures from deeper in the structure. This place has its own fusion. Reactors. Multiple reactors. The response crackled back immediately. Captain, we're detecting similar power signatures from all the structures in this system. They're all active. They moved closer to the stasis chamber. Through the viewing window, they could see that most of the pods were dark and empty, but a few still glowed with active life support systems. There's something alive in there, Zeph Luna said, her aquatic body trembling with excitement. Multiple life forms, actually. Keth Iron was scanning the chamber's control systems. I can read some of these symbols. They're mathematical, like the transmission. I think I can open the viewing chamber. Nix of Aldor hesitated. Opening alien stasis pods could be extremely dangerous. But the alternative was leaving without answers, and the High Council had made it clear that answers were exactly what they needed. Do it, he ordered. The chamber door slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, the air was cool and filled with a faint humming sound from the active stasis pods. They approached the nearest functioning unit carefully. Through the transparent lid, they could see a humanoid figure. Bipedal, about 2 meters tall with pale skin and dark hair. The being looked exactly like the humans from the old Terra records. That's impossible, Zeph Luna whispered. Humans went extinct 50,000 years ago. Keth Iron was studying the pod's control panel. These symbols, I think they're instructions. For wake-up procedures. Nix of Valdor felt like they were standing at the edge of a precipice. Everything they thought they knew about galactic history was crumbling around them. Can you activate the wake-up sequence? I believe so. But Captain, if I'm wrong about these controls, do it. Keth Iron's mechanical fingers danced over the ancient controls. The stasis pod began to glow brighter. Liquid drained from the chamber and the lid slowly opened with a soft click. The human female inside took a deep, shuddering breath. Her eyes fluttered open, revealing bright brown irises that focused immediately on the 3 alien beings standing over her. She sat up slowly, showing no signs of confusion or disorientation. When she spoke, her words were in perfect galactic standard, though her accent was unlike anything they had heard before. You found us, she said calmly. That means the time has come. Nix of Aldor's translator was working perfectly, but he still couldn't believe what he was hearing. You speak our language? The human woman smiled. We speak all languages. We've been listening to your species develop for 50,000 years. She stood up gracefully, despite having just awakened from millennia of sleep. "My name is Jiwoo. I am a guardian of the First Fleet." "First Fleet?" Zephluna asked. "We've never heard of any human space fleet." Jiwoo walked to a wall panel and placed her hand on it. The chamber filled with light as holographic displays activated throughout the room. Star charts appeared in the air, showing the galaxy from 50,000 years ago. "You wouldn't have," Jiwoo said. "We made sure of that. The question is, how advanced has galactic civilization become? Have your species learned to work together?" Nixavaldor felt like the universe was spinning around him. "You've been asleep for 50,000 years. How could you know about our civilization?" Jiwoo touched another panel. The holographic displays changed, showing real-time images of their own fleet outside the structure. "We haven't been sleeping, Captain Nixavaldor. We've been waiting." She knew his name. Somehow this ancient human knew his name. "Waiting for what?" Kethiron asked. Jiwoo turned to face them, and for the first time, they saw something serious in her expression. Something that made Nixavaldor's warrior instincts scream danger. "For the galaxy to grow up enough to help us with what's coming," she said. "We tried to handle it alone 50,000 years ago. We failed. Now we need allies." The chamber filled with new sounds as more stasis pods began their wake-up sequences. Throughout the vast structure, ancient systems were coming online, and if Nixavaldor's readings were correct, the same thing was happening to structures throughout. "This system, what's coming?" he asked, though part of him didn't want to know the answer. Jiwoo looked at the star charts floating around them. "The same thing that made us go to sleep in the first place. The reason we've been watching and waiting while your civilizations developed." She touched one final control, and the entire structure shuddered as massive engines came online for the first time in 50 millennia. "Something that makes our technology look primitive," Jiwoo said. "And it's almost here." Supreme Counselor Mordak's massive form filled the center of the Emergency Council chamber aboard the flagship Eternal Vigilance. His crystalline body pulsed with nervous energy as he stared at the impossible data streaming across the main displays. Around him, representatives from all 7 council species sat in stunned silence. "Let me understand this correctly," Mordak said, his voice resonating through the chamber like distant thunder. "You're telling us that humans not only survived their supposed extinction, but they've been hiding in stasis chambers throughout the galaxy for 50,000 years?" Ambassador Veltar nodded grimly from his seat. "That's exactly what we're telling you, Supreme Counselor. The being called Jiwoo has provided us with evidence that challenges everything we thought we knew about galactic history." On the main screen, a holographic image of Jiwoo appeared. She stood calmly in the medical bay of Captain Nixavaldor's ship, looking completely at ease despite being surrounded by alien technology and beings she had never seen before. "May I address the council?" Jiwoo asked politely. Mordak gestured with one crystal appendage. "Speak, human. Explain how your species survived 50 millennia without our knowledge." Jiwoo smiled, and something about that expression made every being in the chamber feel uneasy. "We didn't just survive, Supreme Counselor. We thrived. What you call extinction was actually the beginning of our true expansion." She gestured, and new holographic displays filled the chamber. Star charts showing the galaxy as it had been 50,000 years ago. But instead of empty space, the charts showed thousands of human colonies, massive space stations, and technology that dwarfed anything the Council possessed. 50,000 years ago, humanity had already colonized most of the galaxy. Jiwoo continued. "We had achieved technological singularity, developed faster than light travel, and built an empire that spanned millions of worlds." Commander Kixmoth's shell plates rattled with agitation. "Impossible. Our historical records show no evidence of any such civilization." "Because we made sure you wouldn't find any," Jiwoo replied calmly. "When we realized what was coming, we made a choice. We could either fight alone and probably lose, or we could sleep and wait for younger species to develop, species that might help us when the time came." Another figure materialized beside Jiwoo on the holographic display, a tall human male with silver hair and eyes that seemed to hold the weight of millennia. "Allow me to introduce Admiral Thane," Jiwoo said. "He commanded our military forces during the last war." Admiral Thane stepped forward, his bearing unmistakably that of a soldier. "Counselors, What Jiwoo is trying to explain is that humanity faced a choice 50,000 years ago. We had detected signs of an approaching threat, something from outside our galaxy that could destroy all life. Dr. Yulsen's ethereal form shimmered with confusion. But why hide? Why not warn other species and work together? Thane's expression grew grim. Because 50,000 years ago, there were no other spacefaring species. You were all still developing basic tools and language. We calculated that it would take approximately 50 millennia for galactic civilization to advance, enough to be useful allies. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs and angry chittering. The implications of what the humans were saying challenged the fundamental beliefs of every species present. You're claiming that you guided our development? Mordak demanded. Jiwoo nodded. Not directly. We established monitoring stations throughout the galaxy and set up automated systems to provide subtle guidance when needed. A piece of technology discovered here, a mathematical breakthrough there. Nothing obvious, but enough to help you advance along the right paths. The main display changed again, showing real-time images from across the galaxy. Structures that the Council had thought were natural phenomena were revealed to be human monitoring stations. Ancient artifacts that archaeologists had attributed to unknown civilizations were actually human technology. The Galactic Council itself was part of our plan, Admiral Thane added. We needed to see if younger species could learn to work together, could overcome their differences, and form a unified civilization. Captain Nix Valdor's voice crackled over the communication system from his ship. Supreme Counselor, we're detecting massive power signatures from across this entire system. The human structures are all coming online simultaneously. On the display, they watched as the camouflaged structures shed their asteroid disguises. What had appeared to be dead rock revealed itself as massive ships, space stations, and defensive platforms. Each one was larger than the Council's biggest vessels. This is just one system, Jiwoo said. There are hundreds of others throughout the galaxy, all awakening now that the monitoring systems have detected that galactic civilization has reached the required level of development. Mordak's crystalline form pulsed with a deep red light, indicating extreme agitation. Required level for what? For the war that's coming, Admiral Thane replied. Our deep space monitoring systems detected the approaching threat again 6 months ago. It will arrive in approximately 1 year. The chamber fell silent, except for the humming of life support systems. The magnitude of what they were being told was almost impossible to process. What kind of threat? Ambassador Veltar asked quietly. Jiwoo and Admiral Thane exchanged a look that spoke of shared terrible knowledge. Something that nearly destroyed us 50,000 years ago, Jiwoo said. Something that consumes entire civilizations and turns their technology against them. We barely escaped last time, and only by going into hiding. The main display showed new images. Deep space telescopic data revealing massive objects moving between galaxies. Things that were too large and too organized to be natural phenomena. They're called the Devourers, Admiral Thane said. They sweep through galaxies systematically, consuming all advanced life and technology. They use what they absorb to make themselves stronger. Dr. Yulsen's form flickered with fear. How did you survive before? We didn't fight them directly, Jiwoo replied. We went into hiding and waited for them to move on. But this time is different. Our monitoring systems indicate they've learned to track sleeping civilizations. There's nowhere to hide anymore. Mordak was quiet for several minutes, processing the information. Finally, he spoke. What do you want from us? Partnership, Admiral Thane said simply. 50,000 years ago, humanity was alone. This time, we have allies. 7 species that have learned to work together, share technology, and overcome their differences. The holographic display showed the approaching threat in more detail. Ships the size of moons moving in perfect formation. Technology that seemed to bend space itself around it. Our combined technologies might be enough, Jiwoo said. Human engineering, Chronac manufacturing, ethereal communications, Zenthari research, Nexus organization, Aquarian adaptation, and hegemony military doctrine. And if we refuse? Commander Kixmoth asked. Admiral Thane's expression didn't change. Then we all die. The Devourers don't negotiate. They don't take prisoners. They consume everything and move on to the next galaxy. Captain Nix Valdor's voice interrupted from the communication system. Supreme Counselor, we're receiving similar reports from all the coordinate locations. Human structures are awakening across the entire galaxy. On the main display, they watched as humanity's true empire revealed itself. Not just the few structures they had discovered, but thousands of them. Hidden bases, camouflaged ships, and technology platforms that had been waiting in silence for 50 millennia. The awakening protocol is irreversible, Jiwoo said. Whether you choose to work with us or not, humanity is returning to active status. The question is whether we face the coming threat together or separately. Mordak looked around the chamber, at his fellow counselors. Each species represented millions of worlds and billions of lives. The decision they made here would determine the fate of all galactic civilization. How long do we have to decide? He asked. Admiral Thane pointed to the approaching objects on the display. The Devourer Vanguard will reach the outer rim of our galaxy in 11 months. The main force will arrive 2 months after that. 13 months to prepare for a war that will determine whether conscious life survives in this galaxy, Jiwoo added. We suggest you decide quickly. The chamber fell silent as the weight of the choice settled on the assembled representatives. Work with the ancient humans who had been secretly guiding them for 50,000 years, or face extinction alone. Outside the windows of the council ship, human structures continued to awaken across the star system. The sleeping giants were stirring, and the galaxy would never be the same. Dr. Heijin stretched his arms as he stepped out of the stasis chamber for the first time in 50,000 years. Around him, the massive awakening facility hummed with activity as thousands of humans emerged from their long sleep. His body felt strange after so many millennia, but the automated medical systems had kept him in perfect condition. Status report, he called to the floating holographic interface that appeared beside him. Dr. Heijin, welcome back, the artificial intelligence responded in a warm female voice. Awakening protocols have been active for 72 hours. Current status, 47% of sleeper populations are now online. Integration with monitoring systems is complete. Heijin nodded and began walking through the facility corridors. Through the transparent walls, he could see the planet's surface far below. What had once been a barren world was now covered with emerging cities, rising from underground complexes that had waited patiently for this moment. Show me the current galactic situation, he requested. Holographic displays filled the air around him, showing real-time data from across the galaxy. The younger species were reacting to humanity's awakening with a mixture of wonder, fear, and in some cases, hostility. The Galactic Council has voted to accept our alliance proposal, the AI continued. However, several faction groups within, member species, are expressing resistance. Heijin paused at an observation deck. Below him, he could see Commander So-young directing the activation of planetary defense systems. Massive weapons platforms were rising from concealed underground silos, their surfaces gleaming with technology that seemed more like art than warfare. Expected, Heijin mused. Show me the resistance groups. The display shifted to show intelligence reports from across the galaxy. Most concerning was the hegemony military faction led by General Vorthak. They had split from their government's official position and were gathering forces in the Outer Rim territories. The hegemony splinter group controls approximately 30% of their military assets, the AI reported. Intelligence suggests they view humanity as an existential threat that must be eliminated while we are still in the awakening phase. Heijin sighed. It was always the same with younger species. Fear of being replaced or dominated drove them to make dangerous decisions. Have we made contact with Captain Wubin yet? Captain Wubin's diplomatic vessel departed the Centauri shipyards this morning. He should reach the hegemony splinter fleet within 48 hours. Through the observation deck's windows, Heijin watched as more human ships emerged from their hiding places. Not just the massive structures the Council had discovered, but smaller vessels, research stations, and manufacturing platforms. Humanity's true presence in the galaxy was revealing itself like flowers blooming after a long winter. Dr. Heijin, another voice called. He turned to see Commander So-young approaching, her military uniform crisp despite having just awakened from millennia of sleep. So-young, he greeted warmly. How are the defensive preparations proceeding? Better than expected, she replied, gesturing toward the weapons platforms visible below. The automated systems maintained everything perfectly. All planetary defenses are operational, and the orbital platforms will be online within 6 hours. She paused at the observation window beside him. I've been reviewing the intelligence reports on the younger species. Some of them are taking our awakening very well. Others see us as invaders, Heijin finished. It's natural. We represent everything they fear about being small and helpless in a vast universe. So Young nodded grimly. The hegemony, Splinter Fleet is particularly concerning. Our monitoring systems indicate they're planning some kind of preemptive strike. Against which targets? Unknown. But they've been gathering forces near the Vega system. That's one of our major awakening centers. Heijin felt a chill. The Vega complex contained over 1 million sleeping humans and some of their most important research facilities. If the hegemony attacked there, the casualties would be enormous. Have we warned them? Captain Wubin is en route with diplomatic overtures. But if they refuse to listen, the observation deck's communication system chimed. Dr. Heijin, priority message from the Sol system. Elder Council Leader Daeyun requests immediate conference. Heijin touched the interface panel. Put her through. A holographic image of an elderly human woman appeared before them. Despite her apparent age, her eyes were sharp and alert. Daeyun had been the leader of humanity's governing council when they entered the Great Sleep 50,000 years ago. Heijin, so young, Daeyun greeted them. I trust your awakening processes are proceeding smoothly? Yes, Elder Leader. So Young replied formally. Planetary defenses are coming online ahead of schedule. Good. I'm afraid we have urgent news. Our deep space monitoring networks have detected acceleration in the Devourer approach vector. They will arrive in 10 months, not 13. Heijin felt his stomach drop. 3 months might not seem like much, but with the scale of preparations needed, it could mean the difference between victory and extinction. How certain are these readings? He asked. Very certain. They appear to have detected our awakening activities and are responding accordingly. Daeun's expression grew grim. There's more. We're reading multiple Devourer scout forces entering the Galactic Rim earlier than expected. The holographic display around them shifted to show the updated tracking data. Massive objects were indeed moving faster than their original calculations had predicted. Recommendations? So Young asked. Accelerate all awakening protocols. We need our full population online within 60 days instead of 6 months, and we need the younger species integrated into our defense networks immediately. Heijin nodded. What about the resistance groups? The hegemony splinters won't cooperate if they see us as the enemy. That's where Captain Wubin comes in, Daeun said. He has authorization to reveal some of our monitoring data to them. Show them what's really coming. The communication was interrupted by alarms echoing through the facility. So Young immediately activated her command interface. Report, she ordered. Commander, we're detecting weapons signatures from the hegemony splinter fleet. Multiple ship formations moving toward human awakening centers in 3 different systems. So Young and Heijin exchanged worried looks. How long until they reach our positions? So Young asked. Approximately 18 hours for the nearest targets. Daeun's holographic form leaned forward. So Young, you have full authorization to activate defensive protocols. Protect our awakening centers at all costs. Elder Leader, if we retaliate against the hegemony forces, it could start a war with the younger species. That's exactly what we were trying to avoid. I understand your concerns, Daeun replied, but we can't allow them to destroy our awakening facilities. Too much depends on getting our full population online before the Devourers arrive. Heijin stepped forward. There might be another option. What if we demonstrate our defensive capabilities without actually destroying their forces? Show them that attacking us is futile. So Young considered this. Our defensive systems are designed to disable rather than destroy when possible. We could neutralize their weapons without killing their crews. Do it, Daeun ordered. But be prepared to escalate if they continue their attacks. We can't afford to lose any more time. The holographic conference ended, leaving Heijin and So Young alone on the observation deck. Below them, the planet continued its transformation as more systems came online. In the distance, they could see other awakening humans going about, their duties with calm efficiency. Do you think the younger species will understand? Heijin asked quietly. Some will, So Young replied. Others will see only their fears made manifest. Ancient beings with godlike technology suddenly appearing in their galaxy. Through the observation window, they watched as massive ships began emerging from underground hangars. These weren't the camouflaged monitoring stations the Council had discovered. These were humanity's true warships, built 50,000 years ago to fight an enemy that consumed entire civilizations. "We've been their guardians for 50 millennia, He-Jin said, watching over them, guiding their development, protecting them from threats they couldn't even imagine. And now they're afraid of us." So-Young activated her command interface again. "All defense platforms prepare for incoming hostile forces. Rules of engagement. Disable and capture. Do not destroy unless absolutely necessary." She turned to He-Jin. "They'll understand eventually, when they see what we're really fighting against. When they realize that we've been protecting them all along." The alarm systems chimed again. "Commander, the Hegemony attack fleet has reached the Vega system outer perimeter. They're charging weapons." So-Young's expression hardened. "Then it's time to show them why we're called the Ancient Ones." High above the awakening planet, human defensive systems that had slept for 50,000 years began to power up. The galaxy was about to learn that some sleeping giants were better left undisturbed. General Taeho materialized on the bridge of the human command vessel Eternal Dawn as emergency protocols brought him out of tactical stasis. His ancient mind immediately processed the incoming data streams, and what he saw made his jaw clench with grim determination. "Status report," he commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had commanded fleets when the galaxy was young. Engineer Su-Jin turned from her control station, her fingers still dancing over interfaces that responded to her thoughts as much as her touch. "General, the Hegemony splinter forces have engaged our defensive perimeters around Vega, Altair, and Proxima systems simultaneously. They're using concentrated firepower against our awakening facilities." Taeho studied the tactical displays, floating around the bridge. The Hegemony forces were impressive by younger species standards. Massive battleships with advanced weapons and shields. Against any other galactic power, they would have been devastating. Against humanity's awakened defenses, they might as well have been throwing rocks. "Damage to our facilities?" he asked. "Minimal," Su-Jin replied. "Their weapons are having difficulty penetrating our defensive screens. Most of their energy discharge is being absorbed and redirected." Ambassador Minho's holographic form appeared beside them. He was currently aboard a diplomatic vessel trying to reach the main Hegemony government, but the situation was deteriorating rapidly. "General, I've been in contact with the official Hegemony leadership," Minho reported. "They're trying to recall their splinter forces, but the rogue commanders aren't responding to orders." Taeho nodded grimly. He had seen this pattern before in younger species. Fear drove them to act irrationally, even against their own best interests. "Su-Jin, show me the full tactical situation." The bridge transformed into a three-dimensional map of local space. Red markers showed the attacking Hegemony forces, while blue indicators revealed the true scope of humanity's defensive networks. What became immediately apparent was that the Hegemony had vastly underestimated what they were attacking. "They think they're hitting isolated human facilities," Taeho observed. "They don't realize they're attacking nodes in a galaxy-spanning defense network." Su-Jin's expression was troubled. "General, our automated systems are requesting permission to fully activate. The attacks are triggering defensive protocols that have been dormant for 50,000 years." Taeho felt a chill. The automated defense systems were designed to protect humanity from threats like the Devourers. If they fully activated against the Hegemony forces, there would be nothing left but empty space where the attacking fleets had been. "Override the automation," he ordered. "We'll handle this manually." The main display shifted to show the battle around the Vega system. Hegemony battleships were pouring fire into what they thought was a human research station. In reality, they were attacking one of humanity's most heavily defended awakening centers. "Their weapons aren't even scratching our outer shields," Su-Jin reported. "But they're not giving up." Taeho watched the tactical display with growing concern. The Hegemony forces were brave, he had to give them that. Even faced with weapons that rendered their attacks useless, they continued fighting. "General," one of the bridge operators called out, "the Hegemony fleet commander is attempting to ram our station with his flagship." "Desperate," Taeho muttered. "Su-Jin, can we disable their ships without destroying them?" "Easily. Our tractor. Beam technology is 50,000 years more advanced than anything they've seen. We can simply turn off their weapons and engines. Do it. All systems. Disable but don't destroy. Across 3-star systems, humanity's true power revealed itself for the first time in 50 millennia. Invisible force fields reached out and gently but irresistibly stopped the attacking hegemony ships mid-flight. Weapon systems powered down, as their energy was simply drained away. Engines went silent as their fusion reactors were remotely shut down. In a matter of minutes, the entire hegemony attack force was floating helplessly in space, their crews unharmed but completely powerless. "Remarkable," Sujin said, studying the results. "Their technology is actually quite impressive for their level of development, just not impressive enough." But Tae-ho was looking at something else on the tactical display. Other markers were appearing, across the galaxy. Not hegemony forces, but something far more concerning. "Sujin, what are those new contacts?" She expanded the display to show galactic-wide sensors. What they revealed made everyone on the bridge fall silent. Across the galaxy, in systems that the Council had thought were empty, massive structures were decloaking. Not human structures, but something else entirely. Something that had been hiding, even more effectively than humanity had. "General!" Sujin's voice was barely a whisper. "Those aren't ours." The structures were enormous, dwarfing even humanity's largest installations. They moved with purpose and intelligence, emerging from hiding places in deep space, around dead stars and in the gaps between galaxies. "The Devourers?" Tae-ho asked, though he already knew the answer. "No, sir. These are different. The energy signatures don't match our records of Devourer technology." Ambassador Minho's holographic form flickered with urgent data streams. "General, we're receiving transmissions from these unknown structures. They're using communication protocols that predate even our oldest records." The main display shifted to show the decoded message. Text appeared in ancient symbols that slowly translated into galactic standard. "The children have finally awakened. How delightful. We have been so very patient." Tae-ho felt his blood turn to ice. "Sujin, activate all deep space monitoring networks. I want to know everything about these unknowns." The results came back within minutes, and they were terrifying. The unknown structures weren't just scattered randomly across the galaxy. They had been positioned strategically, surrounding every major star system, every trade route, every populated world. "They've been watching us," Sujin said in amazement. "All of us, not just the younger species, but humanity too." "For how long?" The analysis continued, and the truth became clear. The unknown structures were ancient beyond measure, older than humanity's 50,000-year sleep, older than any recorded civilization. "General," Minho reported urgently, "we're receiving priority communications from Elder Council leader Dae-yoon. She's ordering all human forces to maximum alert status." Dae-yoon's holographic form appeared on the bridge, her usually calm demeanor replaced by obvious concern. "Tae-ho, we have a problem. These unknown entities aren't just observers. Our deepest archaeological databases have found references to them. They're called the Watchers." "What do we know about them?" "Very little. Only that they're mentioned in the oldest human records as beings who existed before our civilization began. We thought they were myths." The bridge displays updated with new information. The Watcher structures were not just emerging from hiding, they were moving, converging on key systems throughout the galaxy with deliberate purpose. "Da-un, are they hostile?" "Unknown. But their positioning suggests they've been manipulating galactic development for far longer than we have. We may not have been the only ones guiding younger species." Sujin's sensors detected new activity around their position. Several Watcher structures were approaching their location, moving through space in ways that seemed to ignore normal physics. "General, they're requesting direct communication with our command structure." Tae-ho made a decision that would change everything. "Put them through." The main display flickered and changed. Instead of tactical readouts, they were looking at something that hurt to perceive directly. A form that seemed to exist in more dimensions than their minds could process. When it spoke, the voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Humanity, you have done well with your charges, but your time as guardians is ending. Greater challenges approach than even you can imagine." Taeho found his voice. Who are you? What do you want? We are what you will become, given enough time. We are what your species was always meant to evolve into, and we are here to prepare you for what comes next. The display shifted to show images from the edge of the galaxy. The approaching Devourer fleet was visible, but behind it, something even larger was moving through intergalactic space. The Devourers are merely the first wave, the Watcher continued. Behind them comes something that even we fear, something that has been consuming universe after universe. Su Jin's hands trembled as she processed the incoming data. General, the scale of what they're showing us, it's beyond anything we imagined. The Watcher's form seemed to focus on Taeho directly. Your species and your younger allies will need to evolve quickly. The old ways of thinking, the old technologies, the old limitations, all must be transcended. What are you offering? Taeho asked. Partnership, guidance, evolution. The same thing you offered the younger species, but on a scale that spans multiple universes. Around the galaxy, humanity's awakening continued. But now they knew they weren't the oldest or most advanced beings in their domain. They were still children themselves, about to be promoted to a much larger and more dangerous playground. The galaxy had shaken when humanity awakened. But the real shaking was just beginning. Elder Council leader Da Yun stood at the center of the newly constructed Galactic Assembly Station, a massive structure that had materialized in the space between galaxies in just 72 hours. Around her, representatives from every known species gathered in chambers that defied conventional physics, their forms visible and audible to each other despite vastly different physiologies. The time for secrets has ended, Da-un announced, her voice carrying to every being in the vast assembly hall. What we are about to show you will challenge everything you thought you knew about reality itself. Ambassador Young-Su activated the central display system, and the assembly hall transformed into a three-dimensional map of the observable universe. Galaxies appeared as glowing spirals, but many of them were dark, empty, consumed. 50,000 years ago, humanity detected the approach of the Devourers, Daewon continued. What we didn't know then was that they were fleeing from something even worse. The display zoomed out further, showing the spaces between galaxies. Massive structures moved through the void, each one larger than entire star systems. They moved with purpose and intelligence, leaving nothing but empty space in their wake. Coordinator Hyun Woo stepped forward from the human delegation. We call them the Erasers. They don't just consume civilizations like the Devourers do. They remove the very possibility that conscious life ever existed. Supreme Counselor Mordak's crystalline form pulsed with confused light patterns. What does that mean, remove the possibility? They edit reality itself, Da-Yun explained. In universes they have conquered, not only is all life gone, but it's as if life never could have existed there in the first place. The physical laws themselves are rewritten. The assembly hall fell silent except for the humming of the station's reality-stabilizing systems. The scope of what they were being told was beyond most species' ability to comprehend. How do you know this? Asked Admiral Veltar. Ambassador Young-Su gestured and new images appeared. Ancient data streams, mathematical proofs, and sensor readings that seemed to bend the mind just to look at them. Because we've been fighting them for longer than any of you realize, he said. The 50,000 years we spent sleeping weren't really sleep. They were spent in accelerated virtual reality, planning and preparing for this moment. The display showed glimpses of vast, simulated universes where humanity had run millions of scenarios, testing strategies and developing weapons. Each simulation had taken subjective centuries to complete, giving humanity the equivalent of millions of years of preparation time. Every possible approach to defeating the Erasers was tested, Hyun-Woo added. Direct military confrontation fails. Hiding fails. Even transcending physical reality fails. There is only one strategy that shows any possibility of success, which is, Commander Kicksmoth demanded. Da-Un looked around the assembly hall, meeting the eyes or sensory organs of representatives from dozens of species. Unity beyond anything that has ever been achieved. Not just cooperation between species, but actual merger of consciousness, technology, and purpose. The holographic displays shifted to show technical specifications for technology that seemed more like magic than science. Consciousness transfer matrices, reality manipulation engines, and weapons that could rewrite the fundamental constants of physics. The Watchers have offered to guide this process, Young-Soo said. They are what humanity might become given enough time and proper development. They've been preparing for this conflict longer than our universe has existed. A new voice spoke, from everywhere at once as one of the Watchers manifested in the assembly hall. Its form was barely perceptible, existing in dimensions that most minds couldn't process. The erasers have consumed 17 universes, the Watcher said. In each case, the dominant species tried to fight them using the same methods that had served them well against lesser threats. All failed because they couldn't comprehend the scale of what they faced. Captain Nix Valdor raised one clawed hand. What makes this time different? This time, the target universe contains something unique, the Watcher replied. Multiple species that have learned to truly cooperate, guided by a species that learned to sacrifice for the greater good, watched over by beings who have transcended individual existence. The display showed the approaching eraser fleet in detail for the first time. Ships that weren't just large but seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Technology that appeared to be alive, growing and adapting as it moved. They will arrive in 6 weeks, Dayun said. The Devourers were just their advanced scouts, sent to weaken us and gather intelligence. The real threat is what follows. Doctor, Yulsen's ethereal form flickered with distress. What are you asking us to do? Evolve, Hyunwoo said simply. In 6 weeks, we need to achieve what normally takes millions of years of development. We need to become something greater than the sum of our parts. The Watcher's presence intensified, and suddenly every being in the assembly hall could perceive what it was seeing. Glimpses of possible futures where united galactic consciousness faced the erasers with weapons and strategies beyond current imagination. The process will be voluntary, Dawon assured them. But understand that those who choose not to participate will not survive what's coming. The erasers don't take prisoners or allow observers. Ambassador Young-Soo activated new displays showing preparation facilities across the galaxy. We've already begun construction of consciousness merger facilities. The technology exists to combine the best aspects of every species while preserving individual identity. What about the hegemony splinter forces? Asked Mordak. They've been given the same choice as everyone else, Daun replied. Some have agreed to join the Unity Project. Others are still fighting it. The display showed the disabled hegemony fleets, their crews now aboard human vessels being shown the same evidence the assembly was seeing. Most were reacting with shock and acceptance. A few were still demanding to be returned to their ships, to continue fighting humanity. Those who cannot adapt will be preserved in stasis until this crisis is over, Hyunwoo said. If we succeed, they can be awakened into a universe where their fears and aggression are no longer necessary. The Watcher spoke again. The merger process has already begun with volunteer populations. Would you like to see the results? New figures materialized in the assembly hall. Beings that were recognizably derived from known species, but somehow more than they had been. A Chronac-human hybrid with enhanced mental capabilities and improved physical resilience. An ethereal Zenthari combination that could manipulate both energy and matter with thought alone. We're not losing our identities, one of the merged beings said. We're becoming more than we ever could have been alone. Elder Council Leader Daeyun stepped forward to address the assembly directly. In our simulations, we discovered something remarkable. The erasers have a weakness. They can only erase realities that follow certain patterns of development, realities where consciousness remains isolated and competitive. She gestured to the merged beings. But consciousness that has truly unified, that has learned to exist as both individual and collective simultaneously, creates patterns they cannot process. We become invisible to their reality editing abilities. The assembly hall erupted in discussion as representatives from different species debated among themselves. The magnitude of the choice before them was overwhelming. How long do we have to decide? Asked Mordak. The first merger facilities will be ready in 72 hours, Hyunwoo replied. Full galactic transformation needs to be complete in 5 weeks to have any chance of success. The Watcher's presence filled the hall with images of what failure would mean. Not just death, but complete erasure from existence. No afterlife, no memory, no trace that any of them had ever existed. The galaxy shook when humanity awakened, Dawoon said in conclusion. But we awakened too late to face this threat alone. Only together, as something greater than any of us individually, do we have a chance. The vote was taken that day. Species after species chose unity over extinction. The holdouts were small in number, mostly individuals rather than entire governments. 6 weeks later, when the Eraser fleet arrived at the galaxy's edge, they found something they had never encountered before. Not individual species cowering in isolation, but a unified consciousness that spanned billions of worlds and multiple dimensions. The war that followed lasted subjective millennia, but only moments in normal time. When it ended, the Erasers had been not destroyed but transformed. Their reality editing abilities turned toward creation rather than destruction. Humanity had indeed been the ancient ones, guides and protectors of younger species, but in the end, they all became something ancient together. Gardeners of multiple universes preparing for challenges that spanned infinite realities. The galaxy had shaken too late to avoid the awakening, but just in time to become something that could not be erased.